Hello, hello. Hi, everybody.
Aloha.
I'm not sure if anyone's with us yet, but that's all right. We will get started. Yeah, we can just
Yeah,
chit chat for a bit just until people get on because
yeah,
I don't want to give all of our disclaimers and stuff and then people miss it. So,
exactly. So let's chat for a minute before people get on about Victoria Hewerman and this whole thing.
oh, okay.
The only thing I really want to say on this is I don't know exactly where they're going with this, Rachel. What the intent was yesterday of the press conference. First of all, in my opinion, it was backwards. They put the cart ahead of the horse. Normally, when you're trying to implicate that someone knew or someone was involved or whatever, you put that out. It goes out on mainstream media first, then they hold a press conference. They did this backwards
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
just threw it together. But here's the thing, Rachel. Victoria Hewerman was born in 1997. That was the year after Rex and Asa Ellerup married.
yeah.
She would have been when Rex's last known alleged victim, not Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Barthelemy, when she disappeared, Victoria was 13.
Oh,
So clearly, I don't know where they're going with this because they obviously haven't done the math. And so
right.
I don't know what they're saying. I mean,
Hmm.
some of the drawings and the other thing that's come out today from several different people on social media, and I kind of it's been enough to where I kind of think it's probably true. A lot of the photos or the drawings came from other Tumblr sites
Oh,
and not her
yeah,
Tumblr
they were
site.
other people's things. Yeah, they
Yeah,
were other people's things she was
yeah,
reposting, but yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So
we
I
have
don't know.
yeah, I don't know either. We are going to talk about Reed today, guys. We were just kind of chit-chatting before people started showing up. So, um looks like we have somebody. Hi, whoever you are. We have
I
our
don't
little
have.
disclaimer at the bottom. Oh, I see somebody watching, but we have our little ticker on the bottom that says be respectful. We appreciate everyone's opinions here. We wanted to do this show because we are potentially jurors in a case, right? And although, yeah, we have information from social media and stuff that we check in on, um, you know, we are representative of a jury with different opinions and different interpretations of things. And I just always I keep thinking this is going to be a long deliberation. I think it is going
I
to be
think.
a long. I think we don't need to be sitting by the verdict watch tickers
Yeah.
because, like, enjoy your weekends or whatever. Hey, Tennessee chick, I think that's what TN stands for. Thanks for being here.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for being
Um,
here.
yeah, so I'm like, those poor 12 people that are going to be in there, with all the different opinions that we probably have,
Hmm.
and with much less information than we have, also. I mean, they haven't allegedly been influenced by any of this stuff that's going on social media. So
Right.
I can't help but think that there's probably quite a bit of confusion. I find myself watching some of these witnesses and thinking, like, what? Like, and
Yeah.
I have the
I
ability to
agree.
go back and re-listen. I don't know if they're going to have transcripts that they can read, or I know they'll be able to look at a lot of the evidence, but I,
Sure.
I think this is going to be really hard for everyone um, to make sense of. And Tennessee, yeah, okay, so I can do a really good Southern drawl too. I'm glad you brought that up.
Here we go.
Listen, y'all, this Karen Reed, oh my gosh. Okay, I won't do it the whole time, but it's in my blood.
Well,
um,
I think it's going to be, we're coming into the seventh week, I think, Rachel, isn't that right?
yeah, 20 some days.
Okay. And we haven't even seen the case in chief start yet from the defense. And to me, this trial was supposed to be 7 or 8 weeks long, and here we are. And I
Hmm.
think it's going to be easily 10 or 11 weeks long before they
Yeah.
wrap this up because we don't know what Jackson and Yannetti and Liza Little, Elizabeth Little are going to present, but I'm sure they're going to try to do whatever they can.
Well, they requested only, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was just 1 week or a week and a half is all they requested.
See, I just don't
the
see that
defense.
happening.
I kind of do, only because I think they're, I mean, geez, 800 people have been called already, right? And they've been able
Right.
to cross fairly effectively. I think
Hmm.
that if the prosecution doesn't put the medical examiner on, I think they'll put the medical examiner on. I think they have their own, well, they have their own accident reconstruction person that I think might be in voir dire next week,
Hmm.
as one of those witnesses, as far as
Yeah.
like determining if they're an expert or not. And
Hmm.
then the pathologist slash ER doc that they want to have on, to
Yeah.
talk about the dog bite situation. So those are I haven't seen a witness list for them, but those are the only three that I know have been kind of actively discussed, um,
Hmm.
thus far, on live stream anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, if they only have a handful of people just to go against this
Sure.
guy who just testified today, the reconstruction guy,
Hmm.
and then the medical evidence, I don't think Karen will get on the stand. I think that's a bad idea if she does, but and yeah, Tennessee Chick, I didn't either. I saw some stuff, but I started seeing all the chatter and fighting, and I was like, I don't even want to get into this case. Like, I don't even want to know about it. And
Hmm.
so then I was like, okay. So all I really know, other than what people fight about, is what the testimony has been thus far. And I've
Right.
been trying to keep it that way and not like delve into tons of articles and podcasts and stuff. So
Yeah, this is such a hotly
yeah,
contested one, Rachel. You and I have talked about
yeah.
this in Tennessee Chick. We were talking earlier today, just a few minutes ago. Neither of us, I'm retired police. Rachel and I are longtime trial watchers. I've never
Hmm.
seen a trial like this before with this much
Yeah,
toxicity and this much division. And,
yeah.
one of the things that I did, I wish we had more people in the chat right now, but maybe they'll show up. I was going to talk about the post I put out this morning on Twitter X, regarding where the trial's at now, because a lot of people have their minds made up, and, having opinion is totally
Mhm.
fine. I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I have my opinion right now on what happened too, but I still think it's important to watch the trial and watch all of the evidence. And I think what happens in trials like this is it gets so hotly divided that people lose sight of the fact that it's really not about what you believe. It's about
Right.
what can be proven. It's belief versus proof. And
Hmm.
whether she's guilty or whether she's not guilty, it's about proving that. The defense has to prove nothing. All they have to do is present reasonable doubt. And so
Right.
far, I believe they've done that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I do
So
too.
it's my opinion, and I'm just going to put it out there because this is just my opinion, that unless they do come up with something concrete to show exactly how John O'Keefe received these injuries, and that it was a direct result of her running into him and having him hit his head on the rock or the fire hydrant or whatever, I believe she may walk. I really do. But
Yeah,
again, I haven't seen everything yet.
yeah, right. And the jury hasn't either. And I sit there and watch and think, like, especially today, I'm like, oh my gosh, give these people some breaks. Like, I'm sitting there like, and I can lay on my couch and watch and play on my phone, and I can get other work done while I'm listening. And I'm still like, oh my gosh, where are you going with this? Like,
Yeah,
sometimes bored out of my mind. And I'm
I
like,
know. I
take
know.
care of these jurors. They are probably going nuts right now.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah, just that's what I always think about is like
Yeah.
if I were sitting in that box.
It's crazy. And Tennessee, you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, this is what social media brings. And you look at the stuff with Turtle Boy and all the free Karen Reed stuff.
Mm,
And I think another case that's coming up, if it ever goes to court, is going to be the Koberger case. It's going to be hotly divided like this as well. But
yeah,
we can
I
talk
think so
about that
too.
another time.
Yeah, we
So
got plenty of time for that, obviously, if it's
yeah,
gonna
we
go on
do.
forever.
Yeah.
So what do you think about some of this evidence? What do you think is the best evidence that you've seen so far? Scott, what's your
Well,
take on what we've seen?
okay. So let me start out.
Minus what people have said online, like just what we've seen in the trial.
Okay, just what we've seen in the
Yeah.
trial. Okay, so let me first say this. I have not bought into the big old conspiracy cover up
Mhm,
at all. It's
mhm,
just too many people to try to get involved. with no whistleblower that could ruin everything. So I've never really bought into that conspiracy. You know, you have too many entities involved. It would be
Mhm.
so hard to get all those people on track and keep them on track. That said, you know, I think that obviously the tail light is good evidence. Obviously the hair belonging to John O'Keefe is good evidence. You know, those could have, I mean, the defense is going to argue, well, yeah, those came from the inside of the vehicle. Big deal. You know, they were put there from someone from inside the vehicle. But I mean, it's still evidence. I have not seen any super strong concrete evidence that blows me away at
Mhm.
all in this case. So what
I
I
even
have
think the
seen,
taillight situation is very confusing.
it is confusing. What I have seen, Rachel and Tennessee, um, is that it's been a messed up investigation in a lot of ways. And I mean, I've seen bad investigations before. I've seen things poorly handled. I've seen poor evidence collection, things like that in my career. It is really hard to come back from sloppy police work in a case of this
Mhm.
magnitude. And then when you take into account the whole disaster that was Michael Proctor with how the comments that he made and everything, I mean, that lends even
Yeah.
more to the doubt issue. If the jury is villainized with him now, or if he's villainized with the jury, excuse me,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's going to be tough for them to get past that, in my opinion. But going back to your question,
Yep.
Rachel, I haven't seen any magnificent evidence at all.
Yeah. I agree with you. I don't believe that this is necessarily a conspiracy. I think I think it's a combination. It's a perfect storm
Mhm.
situation. I
Mhm.
think that, and I don't know if she hit him or not. I don't know. I really am
Mhm.
undecided.
Mhm.
And that's, I guess, reasonable doubt, right? I could see a lot of different
Sure.
scenarios, but if I had to pick one, and this has nothing to do with whether or not she hit him, is it was a combination of somebody's hiding something. There are some people that are hiding something. I don't know what it is. It
Mhm.
might honestly not have anything to do with setting Karen up or anything like that, like the whole phone disposal thing.
Mhm.
Um, he could have stuff on there he didn't want his wife to see. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like
Sure.
someone's hiding something.
Yeah.
Everyone is not being totally forthcoming. I think some people may have realized their huge mistakes and they don't want to have to cop to them at this point, and so they're covering over that. It might also have nothing to do with Karen. Do you know what I'm saying? But these
I do.
behaviors and the way they're testifying, I think all those people didn't butt dial. Okay.
Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
they didn't. That's one thing I'm willing to give my flat out opinion on is nobody, not that many people on that particular night were butt dialing each other. That's like the stupidest thing
Exactly.
I've ever heard. Okay.
Yeah.
So something is going on there. I think the investigation from the get go was handled poorly. And within that first 16 hours, Proctor, namely, and a few other, maybe even just Proctor, was of the opinion that Karen hit him, and so that's tunnel vision there.
Right.
And then
It
him
was.
saying that could influence his other coworkers, his other investigators.
Right.
And so I think maybe those other people inadvertently ended up with tunnel vision because they were kind of just following what they were being told.
Mhm.
Um, and then I think once shoddy work is done in one area, it's
Mhm.
like, and you kind of have to cover for that, and then it just kind of
Right.
snowballs. So I think
Carries
this was
over.
really, it's so unfortunate. If I were John O'Keefe's family, I would be so angry
Mhm.
with the police right now
100%.
because he was one of them, and they didn't even take it seriously to begin with as something
Yeah.
that needed to be strictly controlled, very carefully investigated, and I would be so angry. So I really think that
Yeah.
that's where I stand right now. I haven't seen, there's no, I could not convict her at this point in the trial.
Mhm.
If I were sitting on the jury, I'd be like, I have no idea. But if I had to make a decision right now, I've seen nothing that says I would be comfortable with guilty.
Yeah,
Eh,
it's not beyond a
yeah,
reasonable doubt. Not at
but
all.
nothing that has absolved her either. So it's just like
Right.
this. And in
Right.
that situation, I could never convict someone if I didn't have any strong evidence one way or the other. And I know many people feel like there has been a lot of strong evidence. It's so interesting to me how people can look at the same thing and see it
See
completely
it
differently.
differently. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
wild because
Yes, it is.
this is like an extreme example of people doing that. Because I'll see something in the trial, I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, that's totally this," and I look at Twitter and somebody is like, "Well, that was great for this person." I'm like, "No, it wasn't." Like, I don't wait a
Yeah.
minute. And then I feel like I'm messed in the head. I'm, like, so confused. I'm like, "How can you see that so differently from me?" It's
People
crazy.
do. I mean, that's a known thing with witnesses in law enforcement. People, you can have two or three different people looking at the same crime. One will say the guy had on a blue shirt. One will say the guy had on a yellow shirt. They'll both say, two will say he drove a pickup, and one person will say he drove a van. I mean, that is how people see things, and
Yeah, and
it
another
really
person
is
didn't even
that.
see a car.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it
like,
really is that starkly different sometimes. And
it
so
is.
that's just part of it. Going back to the investigation, the initial investigation, though, like you were talking about, Rachel, and we did talk about this previously in one of our shows, but the way the interviewing was done in the first 48 to 72 hours was absolutely appallable to me, just deplorable.
Yeah,
Um, what they should have done, and they didn't, is they should have rounded up as many people, investigators, police officers, whatever, as they could, split up everybody in that house, and
mhm,
everyone in that house should have been interviewed within the first 72 hours before if
yeah,
they were going to conspire to do something, then that gives them way too much time to get their stories straight among themselves and so on and
yeah.
so forth. They didn't do that. They interviewed some of the witnesses weeks or months later, easily.
Well, and Scott, just like Tennessee Chick just said right now, and we said before,
Mhm.
he like within 16 hours, he already felt like we have enough evidence, and
Yep,
those and so many people hadn't even been interviewed yet. So
I know.
because and he didn't even think I don't need to interview, I don't need to search because I already know what happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's I don't
It,
know. That's
it
really
was
bad.
it was not a subjective investigation at all, or
No,
not at all, not at
no.
all.
Mm-mm.
So, I don't know where the jury's going to go with this in terms of, let's say we get to the end of the trial,
Mhm.
how much of what Michael Proctor said on the stand is still going to be sticking with them. I've heard some people say, well, you know, at the 10 or 11 or 12 week point, if we get that far, it's going to have dimmed with them. I do not think it will.
I don't Here's why I don't think it will either.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, is because even if you don't feel as emotionally strong about it by then,
Hmm.
I think it's not it speaks to the way that his judgment, it speaks to how seriously he took the case, it
Hmm.
speaks to how he operates,
Hmm.
and within an investigation professionally.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think when you have a lead investigator who has set everything up under that umbrella,
Hmm.
how can you trust everything else? And it's not just about the
Exactly.
comments he made about her either. It's about all of the procedural stuff too.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
And, here's the thing, too, you guys. I mean, it doesn't accident return
I'll get
testimony.
to that in a
Okay.
second. I have some things to
Okay.
say.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Let me throw
Go
this
ahead.
out here real quick. So,
Yeah, go for it.
um, I totally just lost my train of thought. So
I'm so
go
sorry.
ahead. That's okay. Go ahead, Rachel, and then I'll come back to mine.
Yeah, interrupt me if it comes to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will.
So here's the question from Tennessee Chick. So I kind of just caught up on that. And I could okay, so one thing that I think is important when you're thinking about how a juror feels is feeling like how do you feel, right, while you're watching this trial? Like what emotions coming up for me? How am I reacting to this witness? Because we're humans too, and humans are on the jury, right?
Hmm.
So this guy, he was, and part of this is Lally's um, style, right? And so
Hmm.
like I don't really love his style, so I'm already kind of like, huh. I'm like, this is going to be the longest testimony in the free world.
He's a little
So
mundane. Yeah.
So I found it difficult to follow. Um, and I found myself being like, he wasn't very articulate, and so that made it even harder to follow
Mhm.
because I'm like having to listen a little too hard, and it was going on and on and on. I was like fast forwarding through some of it.
Mhm.
So he there are a couple things I caught that were interesting to me. Toward the end, he mentioned that there was a certain approach he didn't take in the testing of with the accident reconstruction because he already was told that it was intentional. It was an intentional accident or intentional
Mhm.
car incident, I should say.
Right.
And so the way that he approached the entire testing and was through the lens of she intentionally hit this guy.
Mhm.
And I think that's problematic, but doesn't that it's very consistent, right? When you're looking
Mhm.
at Proctor trickling down
Sure.
because it was, yep, it was her. She did it intentionally, trickled down to now this accident reconstruction guy who, um, even the so the testing that he did was on a clear, sunny day, not a snowy night when he's
Mhm.
talking about visibility. There was something else that he did that I was like, oh, he's talking about the speed that was registered. Well, first of all, they have her going forward and then like backwards and then forwards, like quickly. They had this chart that showed how they could find that out. There were no dates and times.
Mhm.
We have literally no idea what day or time that event occurred
See,
that he's
that's
pointing
that's
out.
just bad documentation all the way
I mean,
around.
yeah, like they're just assuming that that was because they're assuming she was about within that mileage or something that would have
Mhm.
happened. But it could have been when she was out looking for him and she was reversing to turn around. The other thing is the speed. We don't know if, and because he hasn't been crossed yet, so I don't know if they'll get to this, but was the speed GPS speed or was it tire rotation speed?
Mhm.
Because it was snowy out. She
Yeah,
could have been spinning her wheels if she hit
very
the
true.
acceleration quickly. So who
Yeah.
knows what that was. And then um I wrote boring in all capital letters in my notes, so if that tells you. I was like, "What is the point here?" It was so crazy. They used this dummy, this punching bag dummy that was supposed to represent John O'Keefe, and they said, "Well, how tall was the dummy?" I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
about as tall as me or taller. So how does this represent John O'Keefe?
Exactly.
And then they asked him a bunch of questions about the injuries, and would they be consistent with how he ended up on the lawn, but then there were never accurate measurements or
Right.
positioning or anything taken at the time. It just felt so forced to me
Mhm.
and confusing and boring at the same time. And
Yeah.
and my big takeaway, which my big question right now is, are they going to call the medical examiner or not? Because they've been asking a lot of these non-medical witnesses to comment on the consistency of the injuries to what you
Yeah.
would see in an accident. So that was my take on the recon testimony thus far.
Well, here's my take on the medical examiner. I
Yeah.
think that they absolutely have to call the medical examiner, and here's why. Because you know darn well the defense is going to have their own medical examiner or medical expert come in. So, it's going to become a battle of the experts, you guys, on
Yeah.
this injury. Theirs is going to say, no, it's not consistent with being hit by a car. Our guy's probably going to say on the prosecution side that, yeah, it very well could be consistent. So I don't think they have a choice. I think they have to, or they are striking out badly if they don't
Yeah.
do that. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
seems it seems like, and I think this might be the case with the medical examiner and medical people too, is that a lot of this evidence we're seeing is inconclusive or like we can't rule that out, but we can't rule it in kind of stuff.
Right.
Like the cell phone search is not a Google search time, it's a tab is opening time.
Mhm.
So we don't there's no way to know what was actually searched, if anything,
Yeah.
at 2:27 a.m. We just
Right.
know a tab was opened. So it's
Right.
sort of like, okay, well, we can't rule out that she searched anything, but we can't rule it in either. It's just, and that's how I felt like a lot of this, testimony that or evidence lately of the experts has been is like, well, it could be,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
not yes, this is it. Although the hair was John's, so
Right.
that's to me pretty conclusive. The DNA was
Yeah.
John's, but like
The
there was
DNA
other
evidence
DNA
was good.
too
Mm-hmm.
but we don't know whose that is because you didn't take everybody's DNA who was at the scene, so you don't really know.
Right.
And honestly, to me, I was thinking about this too. Even if Proctor and Buchanan's DNA was on the taillight, it wouldn't really mean anything to me. I mean, they were there and they might have handled the evidence. It doesn't mean that they messed with the evidence. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So even
Yeah.
if their DNA had been on it, but also if they weren't messing with it, I can tell you they're not doing it with their bare hands. They're not that
Right.
dumb. So
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The DNA is just kind of like
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tennessee chick, I agree with you on the injuries happening by the tail light. I mean, I've seen a lot of weird stuff in my career. I mean, it is possible. I'm thinking that, it could have happened. I know John had allegedly had a glass in his hand. Some people have speculated in one of the groups that I'm in that when she hit him, the tail light cracked and then the glass broke, and that is what ran up his arm and caused those cuts and lacerations. I don't know. Honestly, I don't really know what to say yet. I guess I need to see more evidence on that if they're going to
Mhm.
present any more, because one of the weirdest things to me in this case with regard to the injuries is those arm scratches. I
Yeah.
cannot for the life of me figure that out.
Yeah.
And so I hope that they present things that bring that together, because that's the crux of their case, in my opinion, at this point. They have to be able to show how those injuries were caused, and that it was done by Karen's car if they're expecting
Right.
to convict her.
I was looking up the other day what questions and trying to think of like what the makeup of the jury is. And I know people have said that it's mostly women, like some of the reporters that are in there. And then some were dismissed today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you
They
saw that,
were.
Scott, but
I
yeah,
did.
because of supposedly the defense had pictures of one or more, I don't know who all was at the waterfall
Yeah.
bar, go figure,
It
talking
it
with
was
prosecution witnesses.
Yeah, it was one witness that went to the waterfall bar, and allegedly, and this hasn't really been firmed up yet, so I want to say
Yeah,
allegedly, there was a
yeah,
tape that was a recording that was given to the defense,
yeah.
allegedly. And as far as your question, Tennessee, on clothing that has
Oh
tears
yeah,
consistent with that, yeah, his clothes were torn on the
they had
outside of that arm.
pokes.
He did,
They were
he
like
did.
poke marks.
Hmm.
Yeah. What I wondered is there glass embedded in those wounds? Because if he's
Exactly.
slashed by glass or plastic, you'd think there would be pieces of it, but I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know
So
either.
I was trying to figure this out. So I was like, oh, I wonder how these people stand on like, I mean, some people we stand by the police. They're not gonna. There's no like the way they feel about law enforcement, that kind of thing. And then there may be people that have had really bad experiences with law enforcement and they
Hmm.
absolutely believe they could be corrupt and so I was looking up what were the questions on the juror form when they were seating a jury, and I found a list of them, and there are a lot of questions about their ability to handle the fact that there's a lot of media attention.
Hmm.
Are they going to be able to stay off social media? Are they going to be able to avoid and are they worried about their safety if they become with all of
Hmm.
the media attention?
Yeah.
um, and they were asked a lot about of course what exposure they've had to the case, but um, you know would you automatically believe or disbelieve law enforcement, firefighters, medical professionals, just
Mhm.
because, people from the government, just because of who they are and their position? There were a lot of questions worded very differently, but
Mhm.
it's basically saying the same thing. Like, have you ever participated in a protest or a march for a cause against the government? Have you ever made financial contributions to the police, the fire department, all these kinds of things? And then a lot of questions about how they felt about drinking and driving.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. I'm really curious about what what they wrote and how. I can't believe that somebody would be completely neutral about any of those things.
Exactly.
But can you set that aside? Essentially, is what
Yeah.
they were asking everyone.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's weird. Some people like just can't believe that like people would lie or conspire, or
Mhm,
even a couple people would come together to do something horrible. Like, some people just
mhm.
really don't believe that that's possible, but I mean, things do happen.
They do. They
I don't
do.
think there's 15, 20, 25, however many people in a conspiracy here.
Mhm.
But I think
Exactly.
a couple people could have set up a snowball effect, and
Yeah.
the others may not even realize, you know?
Yep. Yep. Hey, Leo and Dexter, thank you so much for showing
Hi.
up. Those are,
Yes.
Rachel, those are from the group, in
Oh,
Jen's
cool.
chat room that yeah. So thank you guys
Nice.
very
Thanks for
much
being here.
for coming together. Yeah. Yeah, we don't have a
Awesome.
lot of people in the chat room today, and I think it's just because of the time that we're doing this right now. It's
Yeah.
still early some places, but yeah, we appreciate you guys being here.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
I want to go back to Proctor for a minute,
Okay.
and talk for just a second about what I was going to go into earlier.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to make clear as a law enforcement officer, I mean, some of the comments that he made, I'm going to be very honest with you guys, are comments that I have heard made by other officers, calling someone a whack job, things like that. That's just kind of how law enforcement talks sometimes. But what the mistakes that he made were he took it way further than that. He took it into her personal health in a very degrading way. He called her the C word a number of times. He stated that he wished that she would kill herself, all on his personal phone. Yes. But any officer with any experience at all knows that even your personal phone stuff is all discoverable. And so that's why this is such a huge thing, because he made all of these awful comments and he didn't do the investigation very well. It was very biased, in my opinion. And he put it in writing,
Mhm.
and everything became discoverable. And now here we are.
Right.
And so, the jury they're going to look at that. I'm sure they are looking at that. And like, if he did those things that we
Yeah.
know about, what other things was he doing behind the scenes that we don't know
Right.
about?
Like, how can you
So,
expect the other things he did to be above par when
exactly.
that's what he was doing when no one was looking, you know?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
to his bosses. I think that was the other thing that was particularly terrible, is that he was saying these things to his superiors who were
Uh-huh.
not saying, "Man, this is not appropriate."
Yeah,
They were liking what he was saying, they were participating in the conversation. I think then you
exactly.
start to think about what's the culture of this department.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I was listening to, I don't know if you guys know who Joe Giacalone is. He's a retired NYPD detective who's
Mhm.
really brilliant. He was posting stuff on Twitter today, and he was like, if y'all don't think some heads are going to roll on this, you need to think again, because some heads are going to roll on this. This has gotten to be too big. So it's going to be really interesting once this is all done, how this shakes out, whether Proctor's career will be greatly diminished or done,
Mhm. Well, he
things
was
like that.
already on the Anna Walsh or Welsh, case. Um, and Brian Welsh, I don't know if I'm saying his last name right. You know what I'm talking about? But
Yeah,
he's the investigator on that case too, and I can't
he
remember if
is
they said that he was pulled from that or
there.
what's going, but the attorney filed a motion
Yes,
mentioning him. Yeah,
yes,
that's what it was.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So I expect something to happen on the Walsh case with him too. So
Yeah.
I mean, we'll
Again, if
see.
I were John O'Keefe's family, I would be beside myself right now,
Yeah, I agree.
regardless
And
of
you,
what I thought happened. Yeah.
and Baxter, that's a good point. He wrote, "I wonder if the FBI were shocked by the texts, so they ensured that
Mm,
the report was available pre-trial." That's very possible.
yeah.
Very possible.
Very strange that this trial's happening with that investigation not having completed
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, I agree.
I
Hey,
wonder if they
Sean.
wanted to hurry up and take it to trial
Yeah,
so that before it concluded, because although I don't know, will that be an appellate issue? I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that if
yep,
the
yep.
FBI report comes back bad. Hey, Sean. Oh, Sean, I hope
Hey,
you're feeling
Sean.
better.
Yeah, I hope you're feeling better too, Sean. Sean, I need to introduce you to Baxter here in the chat. He's also in the UK. So
Does he have
Sean's
a
in the
Jack
UK.
Russell too? Baxter, is
Who?
that a Jack Russell Terrier? Because we just made you new best friends with Sean because he has them as well. So go be friends. We're friend matchmakers here too, in case you didn't know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's our part-time job.
Yeah.
So so I don't know, you
Yeah.
guys. I mean, we for those of you that just joined, we were talking about the medical stuff coming in, and Rachel was saying she's not sure, or she was kind of questioning whether they will even bring the ME stuff in. And I'm of the opinion that they pretty much have to, because if they don't, that the defense is going to have their own medical expert, and they're going to have an ME or an expert of some sort come in and say, this was not caused by a car wreck. This was caused by something else. So
Yeah.
yeah, going to be very,
I don't
very
know what
interesting.
I don't know what they're gonna say. And then the whole thing about Proctor's text making it seem see, and this is a thing that can be interpreted two very different ways. And I think that you interpret it through what you already think about what you've heard before, right? So the Proctor telling them that the medical examiner said it was unspecified, manner of death was unspecified, and his buddies are like, well, you should have let us do it. He said, no, if I would have let you go in there, then it would have been um, accidental or natural causes. Like, so
Hmm.
the whole that whole scenario made it seem like Proctor had pressured the medical examiner to try and make it a homicide.
Hmm.
We sent all the pictures, we talked with multiple times, this is what we got. And so, yeah, cops are part of providing information to the medical examiner, right, Scott? I mean, you can speak to this better than me.
Hmm.
Um, as far as like, what did you guys come upon? What evidence do you have about the situation so they
Exactly.
can better understand it, right? So you
Yeah,
could see it that way. And then they were just joking around with each other, like, you suck at your job. No, you suck at your job, whatever.
exactly.
Um, or you could see it in the context of everything else as we did everything we could to try to get her to say homicide.
Hmm. Good
I know.
point.
What do you guys think? Oh, they're talking
Yeah,
Jack Russells now. We've lost them now. They're talking
we've
about their
lost them.
dogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So funny.
Well,
Uh,
as I was saying earlier, I think unless they show something definitive, unless Lally shows something definitive that absolutely says this is how the injuries were caused. They were caused by Karen hitting John. John hit his head, whatever the case may be. However,
mhm,
they spell that out. Unless they do that, there in my mind right now, you guys, there's enough reasonable doubt to say that she could
mhm.
very easily walk away from this.
And it's gonna have to be pretty definitive, not a thing where it's like, I mean, it could have been, but it
Hmm.
also could have been that.
Hmm.
I don't. I think it'd probably be pretty hard to say that that anyone getting hit by a car would be intentional versus accidental, just because, like,
Hmm.
how
Well,
would
there
you determine that as a homicide, even if it was one? Do you know what I mean? Like, just based
do.
on injury alone.
Well, based on injury alone, it would be tough unless the injury
Yeah,
was so severe that, it showed it really excessive speed and she had to know what she was doing. But,
right.
short of polygraphing her and getting her mindset at the time, things like
Yeah.
that, it would be pretty tough. I I don't know whether she hit him intentional or whether she hit him um accidentally or not. I will go on record and say I do believe that she did hit him with her car. I mean,
Why?
because I don't buy into the conspiracy. I just don't.
Mhm.
And
But do
and
you think it
some
has to be one or the other?
well, that's all that's been presented so far. So,
Yeah,
I mean, there's really nothing else
yeah,
to look at. And so somehow John O'Keefe got injured. Something happened and
right.
he died. So the two things that have been presented right now are he got beat up on this massive conspiracy, and Chloe the hound dog attacked him, and that's one
Yeah.
conspiracy. That's one end of it. And the other end of it is that he was hit by a car. And
But what if he was hit by a snowplow? What if he was hit by Higgins' Jeep with the plow? What if he was
I
do you
mean,
know what I mean?
I do. I mean, it's possible, and everybody was so tanked that, yeah, I could see where
Yeah.
somebody else could hit him. I don't know. we may honestly, we may never really know for
I
sure what
know.
really happened to him,
I
which is
know.
really sad. And that's really sad for the family because you never really heal from something like this anyway. I'm a firm believer in that, but you do find ways to cope. But at least
Mhm.
knowing how it happened and that there's going to be some justice would give them,
I
some
know.
hope, some hope.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think the
Yeah,
next, few days are going to be telling.
I
I
agree.
think the state said but now they have this voir dire that they have to do with the experts for the defense, so that's extending it a little bit, but the state had originally said they were going to rest on Tuesday, but now Tuesday's the day they're doing voir dire, so I don't know if they'll rest Monday at the end of the day or if this now prolongs that.
Yeah,
Um, but, I mean,
I know.
I don't know. I don't know what else they could possibly put on.
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are kind of Tennessee chick was asking, will a hung jury require a new trial? It doesn't require one, but like Baxter said, if the DA wants to try it again, they can. As far as changing the charges when they retry her, I don't know. I don't know
hmm
that. You know,
hmm
Scott?
I don't. I don't know on
Yeah.
that. And on
Yeah.
Baxter's question, the voir dire of the jury, I did not see it.
Mm-mm. It
I,
was
I
not on
it wasn't
cam.
shown. No, no.
Mm-mm. But I found an article that listed if you just look up Karen Reed jury questionnaire, there an article will pop up and it has all the questions that they were asked. It's like
hmm
15 questions that they were asked. So we
hmm
didn't get to see that.
And Sean has a question. Basically, surely the state must be adding lesser included charges into this. And it's my understanding, and maybe some of you in the chat room know too, that have followed this closely. But it's my understanding that manslaughter has been added in as an option. So
Second
yes,
degree manslaughter while under the
degree manslaughter.
influence.
Right,
Mhm.
right, right.
And least
So
scene of a death is the other
yes.
one. Yeah.
Yes. So Tennessee Chick has a question on voir dire. So what voir dire is it's the jury selection.
Ooh,
Uh,
sorry.
and basically what happens is they have all these jurors in the jury pool and they call them one by one. And each attorney has an opportunity to question the juror and decide whether or not they want that juror on the jury. And, they'll ask them questions, anything from, do you know anybody that's involved in this trial? Do you know any of the witnesses? Do you have any preconceived notions with Karen Reed? Have you seen anything on social media? They'll go through all these
Mhm.
questions. And then, long story short, Tennessee Chick, what happens is each attorney has so many preemptive strikes and so many jurors that they can dismiss um, without cause, basically, if they don't want them on the jury. And so
Right.
what they do is they end up whittling it down until they agree on 12 people on the jury, and that's how voir dire
Right.
works. That's a
And
basic rundown on it, but that's
yeah,
how it works.
they can voir dire witnesses too. So the judge isn't quite sure what or if one side or the other isn't quite sure what a witness is going to say,
hmm
they can, without the jury present, they can voir dire, and so jury's not there, and then the attorneys get to question the witness as if it's the trial. The judge gets to hear what the witness is going to say and make sure that it's okay,
hmm
appropriate for them to testify. That way you
Exactly.
don't have experts who didn't write a report coming in just talking nonsense and confusing the
Right.
jury. And that's
Right.
what they're going to do next Tuesday. With the defense has two experts, an ER doctor who's a pathologist, to speak to the injuries John had that look like the defense says dog bites, and then an accident reconstructionist as well.
hmm
Um,
hmm
they're going to ask them the question. So we'll be able to see that, and we'll know. I mean, basically, it'll be like watching the testimony twice if they're allowed in. So
Right, right.
yeah,
And Tennessee Chick has another question too. Could they retry Karen with new or different charges?
yeah, we'll
Technically,
just
go ahead, Rach.
no, no, no. You go ahead.
Yeah, technically they could. Would they go down that road? I don't know, because the charges, they're not going to be able to charge her with first degree homicide, because I don't believe it was intentional, or premeditated rather.
Mm-mm.
So, could they try her for vehicular homicide? Yeah, they could, but I just don't know that they would go there, to be perfectly honest. I mean, the two charges that are up right now seem to be the most applicable, and that's what the grand jury decided was the most
Mhm.
applicable. And so I don't really see them going down that road, unless something really crazy happens that we haven't foreseen yet.
Do you think they'll recharge her though, Scott? You think they'll go back to trial, or you think they'll just not bother?
I don't think they will.
Even
I
with the
think
cop being dead?
I don't know, unless more evidence
Yeah,
comes out. I mean, it's a big deal. Unless more
yeah,
evidence comes out that they can go back to trial, I kind of see it just not going past this stage. But I've
yeah.
been wrong before.
We need to get an attorney on here too, because that makes me wonder, uh, could the family sue the state police?
Yeah.
If it's a hung jury and they're not gonna try it again because of how terrible the investigation was, can the family sue the police?
Hmm.
I don't
Sure.
know.
Yeah.
Can they
I mean,
handle Jackson again? I gotta
yeah.
tell you, at least the defense attorneys keep my attention, which again, as a juror, it's like I find myself watching the case and I'm like, "All right, I'll just watch the cross." And I'm like, "No, no, no, I need to watch because it's like, Lally, what if any blah, 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 like 10-minute long question. What if
Hmm.
any and I'm like, "Oh, I can't hear those words anymore." I'm
Yeah.
just so
Yeah.
tired of hearing that. But
I
then,
mean,
Jackson gets up there and he's dynamic, he's
oh
got your
man,
attention. He speaks well, he doesn't dink around, it's like there's
he
something to
he
be
is
said
a
for that.
he's a master at twisting and turning stuff.
Mhm.
One of the things that he does that they teach you in defense attorney school is he'll ask a question of the witness and he'll say, "But you didn't do that, did you?" Like that, rather than "Did you do that?" or
Mhm.
"You did," those sorts of things. But he's a master of twisting and
Mhm.
turning the evidence. And uh,
Yeah.
both of those guys are really good. I don't know very much about Elizabeth Little, other than I think she has
Yeah.
a little bit less experience than those two do. But Karen Reed's got a strong team. There's no
She
question about
does.
it. And,
And
you know,
honestly, I don't even know, like, Baxter said she might not be able to afford Jackson next time. They're
right?
so invested in this at this point.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they'd represent her even if she couldn't.
I was
This is
surprised.
personal for them, I think, at this point.
I think so too. I was surprised,
Yeah.
honestly, that Jackson was allowed, because he's not licensed in Massachusetts. He is a California
Oh,
attorney.
no
Um,
way.
yeah, he got special permission somehow, and I don't know how that works, you guys.
Mm.
So I won't go
Maybe
down
because
that road
Yannetti
with
is.
you, but maybe he
Mhm.
got special permission to be able to try this case in Massachusetts,
Wow.
because he is a California attorney. He's tried some very high profile cases like Harvey
Mhm.
Weinstein and Kevin
Yeah.
Spacey, but he's not an East Coast attorney.
Yeah. They are
So
sharp. And you know what, too, though? It's funny because states don't usually like that. I know in the state that I'm in, they don't work they don't like when attorneys come from out of state
yeah,
and try to
yeah,
represent people. It's like
yeah,
you're intruding on the, like, hometown guy, like, their
exactly.
style's different, they just don't like that. So it's like if you have people will say, so I've had a couple people. I used to be on the board of examiners, a psychologist, so our state
Mhm.
board, and, someone was coming in front of the board, um, for a complaint, and they ended up having to go to court, and they had this attorney from out of town, from one of the bigger cities near us, a different state, and it was, like, highly advised, not by the board, but that these like, get a local attorney because it is not gonna go well for you having some big shot from another state come in and, blow things up. Like, the judge
Yeah,
isn't gonna like that. So, it's very
yeah,
interesting how that
very, very interesting.
culture things can be culturally different in court.
Yeah. Baxter, thanks for
Yeah.
this comment. I actually have been in law
Oh,
enforcement for years and years, and I did not know this. So thank you for this. A trial has to have one resident attorney, but special permission to for another one to be sought out for out of area attorney. So
okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Thanks for that. Appreciate
That's
that.
cool.
Yeah.
That's
Hi,
good.
Tanya. Hello, Sports Lover
Hey,
42,
Tanya.
Tanya. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, Sean, money does talk. Yes, it
money
does.
does
But
talk,
yeah, like I
Sean.
said, I think it's personal at this point. I don't know. I've been catching some of the clips of reporters asking Jackson and Yannetti questions after court, and they're very passionate about this, and I think they really care about Karen, and I think they truly believe this cause, and
Mm-hmm.
it's personal at this point, and especially probably now that Proctor said he hated Yannetti. I'm sure that
Mm-hmm.
feels a little personal too. And I see the
Absolutely.
perspective of her in court. Yannetti will sometimes sit in a position so that the gallery can't stare at Karen. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you noticed that or not, but
Yeah.
I think this is very personal for them at this point. So
Yeah. Well, her defense team has done I mean, some people think it's a little bit slimy because they have co-opted with Turtle Boy and, he's essentially doing work for them. But the name of the game is defending your client.
yeah,
And, as long as you do it legally, um, and, you're not called for contempt or for violating rules or whatever, they're doing a good job. And like I said
yeah.
earlier, it's my opinion that unless the state really shows some evidence on how that accident happened, I think that she has a good chance of walking right now. So we shall see. I don't know. So, guys, we have to wrap it up a little earlier today. We both got appointments. And so we're going to probably bug out of here real quick. But first of all, to everybody that's new here, all of you that came over from Jen's channel, thank you so much. And Baxter and Sean and Leo, who's from South Africa, thanks for staying up late for this. And we hope you guys will continue to watch us and, maybe watch the beginning that you didn't get to see on the archive.
Yeah,
So thanks to
definitely.
everyone for being here. This is our second show this week. We'll be announcing real soon what we're going to do next. We're looking at getting some more guests on with us. So that's where we're at right now.
Am I cutting out right now?
Nope, you're good. No, you've had no problems with that at all.
Okay, I did
Now
go
you're,
out there for a second.
yeah, you did there. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
this is a good time for us to go. Thank you
All
guys.
right.
We hope you come back.
Thanks for being here,
Bye.
everyone. You guys have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye.